The private jet gleamed beneath the bright morning sun, worth more than most people would earn in several lifetimes. Executives, pilots, security guards, and reporters stood on the airport tarmac waiting for its powerful engines to roar to life. But instead of taking off, the aircraft remained completely silent. Minutes earlier, the billionaire CEO had refused to pay a struggling single father just $200 for fixing a small but critical mechanical problem. She laughed, dismissed him as just another airport mechanic, and ordered him off the property. No one realized that within the next hour, every certified pilot, every senior engineer, and every aviation expert would fail to make that jet fly, while the one man they humiliated quietly walked away carrying nothing except his toolbox and his dignity. Before we begin, if you believe kindness, honesty, and second chances still matter in today's world, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Your support helps us continue bringing emotional stories that inspire millions around the world. The day had begun long before sunrise for Gideon Hale, a 42-year-old airport maintenance technician whose hands carried years of grease stains and whose heart carried years of sacrifice. Every morning, before leaving for work, he prepared breakfast for his 10-year-old son, Nolan, packed his school lunch, checked his homework, and left a handwritten note reminding him that no matter how hard life became, he would always have someone believing in him. Gideon had raised Nolan alone ever since his wife passed away after a sudden illness 6 years earlier. Hospital bills had taken nearly everything they owned. The family home was gone. Their savings disappeared. Yet Gideon refused to let grief define the future they still had together. Instead of becoming bitter, he devoted himself to honest work. He accepted overtime, repaired old equipment others ignored, and became known around the regional airport as the mechanic who could solve problems without expensive parts. Older pilots respected him because he listened carefully before touching any machine. Gideon believed every engine told a story if someone was patient enough to hear it. That sunny Tuesday morning, the airport buzzed with unusual excitement. One of the country's most successful technology CEOs, Celine Ashcroft, had arrived aboard her luxurious private jet after attending an international business summit. Her company dominated headlines, her speeches inspired investors, and her fortune placed her among the wealthiest women in the nation. Everything around her moved quickly because people feared disappointing her. As her jet prepared for another departure, a ground crew member noticed an unusual warning light inside the cockpit. The chief pilot delayed takeoff and requested maintenance. Gideon happened to be the closest certified technician available. He approached the aircraft calmly, carrying only a small toolbox that had belonged to his late father. After listening to the pilots explain the symptoms, he climbed inside and began examining the electrical compartment beneath the cockpit floor. Most people expected a complicated repair requiring hours of work. Instead, Gideon noticed a tiny connector that had vibrated loose during the previous landing. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't expensive. But without it, one of the aircraft's safety systems refused to complete its startup sequence. Within 15 minutes, Gideon carefully reseated the connector, verified every safety check twice, and confirmed the aircraft was ready for departure. Airport regulations required a modest emergency maintenance fee of $200 for the unscheduled repair. To Gideon, it wasn't a fortune. To Nolan, it meant groceries for the week, school supplies, and finally replacing the worn-out sneakers he'd quietly stopped mentioning. When the invoice reached Celine Ashcroft, she barely glanced at it before rejecting the payment. She insisted the repair had taken only minutes and claimed someone should not earn $200 for such a simple task. The accounting staff tried explaining that aviation wasn't about the number of minutes. It was about years of knowledge that allowed those minutes to matter. She refused anyway. Rather than argue, Gideon signed the unpaid service report, closed his toolbox, thanked the pilots for their cooperation, and walked away. He understood something many wealthy people never learned. Self-respect costs nothing. An hour later, Celine ordered immediate departure. The captain completed every checklist. The engine started normally. Taxi clearance was granted. Then another safety alert suddenly appeared. The aircraft automatically locked itself into maintenance mode. Regulations prohibited takeoff. Pilots restarted the systems repeatedly. Nothing changed. Senior engineers arrived. They connected advanced diagnostic computers. Software specialists reviewed flight systems. Manufacturers joined through video conference. Every attempt failed. Passengers waited impatiently inside the luxury terminal. Business meetings worth millions faced cancellation. News of the delay spread rapidly. Meanwhile, Gideon quietly continued repairing baggage tractors on the opposite side of the airport, unaware that dozens of people were now searching for him. Eventually, one veteran captain remembered something important. Before leaving, Gideon had mentioned that after reconnecting the loose safety connector, the aircraft would require a manual verification reset from the external maintenance panel, a procedure rarely needed because newer jets almost never experienced that specific combination of events. The reminder had been ignored during the payment dispute. Without completing that final reset, the aircraft protected itself exactly as engineers intended. It wasn't broken. It was simply waiting for someone who understood it completely. Airport managers finally located Gideon during his lunch break. They apologized sincerely and explained the situation. Gideon never smiled. He never celebrated. He simply picked up his toolbox and returned. Standing beside the silent jet, surrounded by executives, engineers, reporters, and security personnel, he calmly performed the forgotten verification sequence. The entire process required less than 90 seconds. Inside the cockpit, every warning disappeared. The pilots completed startup. The aircraft declared itself fully airworthy. Moments later, both engines settled into their powerful, familiar rhythm. Silence swept across the airport. Everyone understood what had really happened. The issue had never been about money. It had been about respect. Celine Ashcroft watched the mechanic she had dismissed prepare to leave once again. This time, she stopped him. For the first time in years, embarrassment replaced confidence. She realized she had spent her career building billion-dollar companies while slowly forgetting the value of ordinary people whose work made extraordinary achievements possible. She immediately authorized payment, not only the original invoice, but 10 times the amount. Gideon quietly declined the extra money. He accepted only the exact $200 he had honestly earned. Nothing more. The gesture stunned everyone present. Many expected anger. Some expected revenge. Instead, they witnessed integrity. That afternoon, the story spread across television networks and social media. People weren't talking about the billionaire. They were talking about the humble single father who refused to compromise his principles. Messages flooded the airport praising Gideon's honesty. Former coworkers shared stories of him staying late to help struggling families repair vehicles without charging overtime. Pilots described how his careful inspections had prevented countless delays over the years. Parents thanked him for mentoring young apprentices entering the aviation industry. Weeks later, Celine visited Gideon's modest neighborhood. Without cameras. Without reporters. She finally saw the life hidden behind the mechanic's quiet smile. A tiny apartment. Second-hand furniture. A refrigerator that was never completely full. Yet every wall displayed Nolan's drawings, school awards, and handwritten notes celebrating his father's sacrifices. For the first time in a long time, Celine understood what true wealth looked like. It wasn't measured in private jets. It was measured in love. Deeply moved, she created the Hale Aviation Scholarship, funding technical education for hundreds of students from low-income families who dreamed of becoming aircraft mechanics and engineers. She insisted the program carry Gideon's family name because real heroes deserved recognition. Gideon reluctantly agreed, but only if every graduate promised to treat every customer with patience and dignity, regardless of how much money they had. Years passed. Nolan graduated with honors and eventually became an aerospace engineer. Standing beside his father during the scholarship's 10th anniversary, he admitted that the greatest lesson he had ever learned wasn't about airplanes. It was about character. His father taught him that knowledge gives people skill. Kindness gives people greatness. The airport where Gideon once worked eventually dedicated a small bronze plaque near the maintenance hangar. Visitors expecting to read about aviation technology instead found a simple message. Never judge the value of a person by the size of the invoice. Sometimes the smallest payment honors the greatest knowledge. Thousands paused to photograph those words. Many carried them home. Some changed the way they treated workers forever. Celine never forgot that unforgettable morning beneath the clear blue sky when a $200 decision nearly grounded a multi-million-dollar aircraft. Whenever new executives joined her company, she personally shared Gideon's story. Not to embarrass herself, but to remind every future leader that respect is never an expense. It is an investment. And it always pays the greatest return. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Every click helps us continue sharing stories that restore faith in humanity and remind the world that kindness is never wasted.